A trio of seemingly contradictory studies about sodium's heart health effects published last week in the New England Journal of Medicine have brought the salt controversy back up to a simmer. The latest studies no doubt add to the public's confusion about salt, but, as I see it, the most important message is actually quite simple. The vast majority of Americans are eating too much salt and should limit the major sources of sodium in their diet: processed foods and restaurant meals. Major health organizations, including the American Heart Association, recommend that all adults reduce their salt intake to decrease their risk for high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke, although there is some debate among these organizations regarding how low to set the target sodium intake, with numbers ranging between 1,500 mg and 2,300 mg daily. Other experts argue that current sodium recommendations are too restrictive and that very low salt intakes may even cause harm in certain populations, such as individuals with heart failure. New studies on salt at odds. The latest set of studies told two different stories about sodium. Two publications, using data from the same large international peer study of more than 150,000 adults in 18 countries, questioned the benefits of reducing sodium intake to the low levels recommended by major health organizations. In fact, it found that an estimated daily intake of 3,000 mg to 6,000 mg was associated with the lowest risk of heart events and death relative to lower or higher sodium intakes. Quite to the contrary, the third study concluded that sodium intakes exceeding 2,000 mg were responsible for 1.65 million deaths from cardiovascular disease worldwide, and provided further support for public health efforts to reduce sodium intake at the population level. Criticism of the studies has been flying from experts on both sides of the debate, and you can certainly read about these issues in greater detail elsewhere, but I think it's more helpful to look at the big picture, rather than a handful of new studies in isolation. The Institute of Medicine (IOM) did just that in 2005, and again in 2013, when it reviewed the full body of research and issued recommendations regarding sodium intake and health. In both reports, the IOM concluded that there is robust evidence that reducing sodium intake to moderate levels reduces blood pressure and the risk for heart attack and stroke. The real debate is over what defines moderate. While the 2013 IOM committee did not find enough evidence to support reducing salt intake below 2,300 mg, this finding is a moot point for most Americans, because most aren't even coming close to that target. In fact, 90% of Americans are consuming more than 2,300 mg, which means the vast majority of people would benefit from reducing their sodium intake. The smartest way to slash sodium. Limiting sodium is most important for those who have been diagnosed with high blood pressure and older adults, but, as indicated above, almost all of us can benefit from cutting back on salt. Of course, simply limiting sodium won't do enough to protect your heart. Eating an all-around healthy diet is just as essential. Follow these guidelines to reduce your salt intake and improve the overall quality of your diet. Make whole and minimally processed foods, including vegetables, fruits, beans and lentils, whole grains, and nuts and seeds, the foundation of your meals. Most of these foods are naturally low in sodium, and they provide other important nutrients that benefit blood pressure, including potassium and magnesium. Processed and restaurant foods supply 75% of the sodium that Americans consume, so eating more whole foods is the best way to avoid salt. Prepare most of your meals at home. Restaurant meals are notoriously high in sodium. A single plate of food can top 4,000 mg. By cooking at home using whole ingredients, you'll have far more control over your salt intake. Be a smart shopper. When purchasing packaged and processed foods, always compare their sodium contents and factor this into your decision-making. Remember, even health foods can be sneaky sources of sodium.